Well, hey, everybody, get ready for a new case on criminal motives behind the crime scene tape.
My name is Jay, and I co host this podcast with my dad. My dad and I have both worked in law enforcement, and we also specialize in security. Join us as we dive into some of these real life cases and find out what actually happens behind the scenes and what most people don't get to hear about.
It's going to be a good one, so let's jump right in. Welcome, everybody, back to Criminal Motives Behind the Crime Scene Tape. And got a new episode for you today. We're looking forward to it. We're here to talk about cases. Some of them, most of them, we worked. There'll be one or two from time to time that are current event type cases that are bringing a lot of national attention to it. And we just hope to be able to educate people and see if we can't settle some questions you might have about how things work in law enforcement and investigative world, and put you at ease a little bit about processes and why they take so long and what you can do to help, and what any suggestions you might have that would help us that we can legally do. um, I've said it before, but when law enforcement works a case, we're bound by policies, procedures, laws, rules of law, state versions of rules of laws, and then federal versions on top of that. When the bad guys work a case, they don't have no rules. They can do whatever they want when they want. So things happen a lot faster for them than it does for us. If we want to do it the right way, which everybody expects law enforcement to do it the right way, it can take some time. So we just try to hope to bring some light to some of those issues and see if there's anything at all that we can help get out there for people to understand things better. It's not intentional that things are sometimes delayed, but um, during the course of the investigation, it kind of helps to know. We just hope to bring some insight to those things. The next time you run across a case and somebody in your family or a friend says, "Man, I wish they'd tell us this. What's holding up the process?" You can just jump right in and say, "Well, let me tell you a little bit about what I know."
There you go.
And hopefully you'll learn that from us.
Yeah.
So uh, today we're going to be talking about a case that is going to be exciting, and I'm sure you'll be interested. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them with us, and we'll get to them as fast as we can. So without further ado, tell me about what you got on your mind today.
So I was working in, you know, well, okay, we'll say the continental US. So I was working a case here in the US, and this case was probably one of my most, I'd say, wild, and you'll see what I mean when I say it's a wild case. So one day we get a call from local PD, and they say, "Hey, we just got a complaint from a 16-year-old boy who said that when he went to a local meeting for the Civil Air Patrol, there was somebody there that was volunteering. He was a part of the Air Force, and he was assigned to the base that I was at. He was in the Civil Air Patrol before he joined, so he went there to help volunteer and everything. The complaint was when the 16-year-old boy, we'll call him Johnny, when Johnny went to the restroom, the volunteer, we can call him Bob. Bob went into the bathroom with him while he was in there, walked up to him and grabbed the 16-year-old's genitalia. And the 16-year-old was not okay with it. It was not consensual. And so he told his parents, who then called the police and filed a report with them. So we got the interview of Johnny from the local police. We watched it, and the one good thing about, or some of the good things about my agency is that our interviews are very in depth. We ask a lot of questions. We're trained for really for a long time. Like, I think we spent a week altogether, a week of training just in victim interviews, and then there's even more training you can go to if you desire. So we ask a lot of questions, we get a lot of details, and we try not to leave any stones unturned. Local police, and it's not that they are not trying or they don't care or anything. They won't ask as much detailed questions as like a federal agency will. And
Now, what
yeah,
made it? Um, so you're an Air Force investigator,
right.
and was it because the suspect was Air Force that they involved you with it, or the Civil Air Patrol, or both, or what made local law enforcement turn it over to you guys?
So we, as an agency, try to establish a good relationship with local law enforcement so that way they know if there's anybody that works on base, does anything with the base, is in the Air Force, is in the military at all, and they're in that area, that they will contact us whenever something happens,
Okay.
because we get involved when it's called a nexus, and a nexus just basically means a connection. So if there's a connection between the crime and the Air Force or the Department of Defense, which is an umbrella that has all the military branches, then we can get involved. So because the suspect was Air Force, we were involved on this. Oh, hey, kitty.
It's blue.
Yeah, Bluey. Yeah, for those that don't know, that cat is what, like 10 years old?
I think Amber told me he's closer to 13 or 14.
Oh,
Yeah, but he doesn't act like it.
no. He's got the energy of like a 5-year-old cat.
Yes.
That's funny. He's spunky too. Oh, man. That cat
Yep.
is so funny. He used to, and if you live in Florida, you know that sandhill cranes, they're big, tall birds. And that cat used to run and just like jump and flare his legs and arms out and just like try and make himself as big as possible to jump right at him to scare him. Oh, man.
Yeah, he does
It's
that to
so
the
hilarious.
German Shepherd now, so
Oh,
he no fear.
that cat, yeah, that cat has no fear. It's so funny. All right. Anyways, got sidetracked, but it was good. Give everybody a little look into our personal life. So, yeah. So once we got the information, we saw the interview, we knew that we needed to do something as far as start an investigation. So we initiated an investigation. We worked with local law enforcement, and most people would think, oh yeah, let's go get the bad guy, let's bring him in, let's interview him. We took a little bit of a different route. Um, we got his we got the victim's phone, and we did an undercover op where uh, where we pretended to be the victim, Johnny. We pretended to be Johnny, and we started messaging Bob. So we opened the case up to an undercover op, and so as we were messaging Bob, he was responding, and we got him to talk to us a little bit more. Um, and this was all done by local PD. Local PD did this undercover op. At that point, we were not. We were not. It's a weird thing, jurisdiction. So all this happened in their like realm and in their city. So we were coordinating with them. They asked us if we had a problem with them doing an undercover op. We said no. So we didn't guide them or anything. We just said, hey, that would be great. Let's do it. As we're talking to Bob, as Johnny. We told him, hey, I think I'm into that kind of thing. I just wasn't expecting it when you did that. It was just kind of unexpected, and I wasn't okay with it then. But now I think I'm okay with it. However, I have a friend from school. He's gay. He's a little bit more knowledgeable in this stuff, and I think I would be comfortable if he was brought in on this with us. And so, of course, Bob was like, "Yeah, great, sounds awesome." So then we say, "Yeah, this friend's name is Trevor or something. I don't know." So we said, "Hey, I have a friend named Trevor, and I think he would get he would be on board with this. It would make me feel more comfortable." So Bob was all for it. Then we drop in the line saying, "Yeah, he I just texted him. He's into it. He thinks it'd be great. It'd be a good time. But I just wanted to let you know he's only 14. He's almost 15, but he's only 14." And so Bob goes, 14. Okay, that doesn't matter. And so that's when we knew, all right, we got a little bit something deeper now. So now we set up an arrangement. We said, hey, meet us at the mall. We'll all get in together, and then we can go somewhere. Problem is, I don't know where to go. And so Bob said, well, I can go get us a hotel room and we can stay there for the night. And so then after more conversation, Bob sent some pictures. He sent some details saying, hey, this is the hotel we're going to go stay at. Let's meet at the mall. And then he sent some explicit pictures, which is another no-no. And so then we set up the meet. Now, we have eyes on him from when he leaves the base all the way to when he gets to the mall. And so once he gets to the mall, we let local law enforcement know, like, hey, he's there. He just parked. This is his car. They already knew all this stuff, but we were just verifying with them, like, hey, this is the car. This is the plate. Blah blah blah. So once he parks, we parked kind of towards the back, and we watched like four cop cars just kind of swarm. They like drove around in a circle. It was almost like sharks moving in on like a fish or like a something to eat. They're all just like circling around. So then they block off all the lanes. They do a what's called a high risk traffic stop, um, and it wasn't really high. It wasn't necessarily high risk, but it's one of those things where if you're gonna do something like this and there's minors involved and things like that, now because it's a felony level deal, it can be included as a high risk. So we stopped them and got them out of the car. Um, we searched the car, found uh, things that go along with those kinds of activities that he was planning to do, and then we take him to the station. So it was myself and a detective from the local law enforcement agency. We interview him. He talks to us, tells us everything, admits he knew how old Trevor was, and he knew how old Johnny was, and he admits everything. And so with that, now we have a confession. We we wrap up the interview, and then we go back to base and we get a search warrant for his room because we used the information that we had. So we knew that uh, he would accept sexual favors from a minor. We knew that he would send pictures of genitalia to a minor, and we knew that he had intentions to do sexual things with minors because of the um, stuff that we found in his car and in his confession. So we used all of that as evidence in an affidavit. So we wrote up an affidavit. We wrote up the search warrant. We put in there exactly what we're looking for. We were looking for, at that point, we based off of, so this is a phrase that we use in law enforcement, based off of our experience and training, because he was looking for sexual activities with a minor, he could be using electronic devices to look up child pornography. So we got a search warrant for electronic devices. We got a search warrant for anything related to children in any kind of way. So if there was like pictures or uh, really just anything that could relate to a child. So then after we had all that stuff written up, we take the affidavit and the search warrant to, well, so in the military, there's certain people, they're called commanders, they run certain things on base, and there's only a few of them that are designated as military authorization. So we have to go to them, present the facts, present the affidavit, supporting evidence, all that stuff. We have to present all that to them and then tell them we're trying to seek a search warrant for this stuff. And then they say yay or nay, depending on what we have collected. This one was kind of like a slam dunk. It was pretty easy to identify, and so they gave us the go ahead. So we go to his living quarters on base, and he had computers and phones and some tablets and stuff, hard drives, things like that. So we had to collect all of that. Then this is where it starts. I mean, if it's not wild already, it starts to get more wild. We get into the weeds. We get into his stuff, and we find a bag with powder in it, white powder. And so now we're thinking, okay, well, now we have potentially drugs on our hand. At that time, fentanyl was a really big thing, so we had to like mask up and glove up and get all kinds of crazy because it could have been fentanyl, and if we were exposed to too much of that, we could have died. So we then we have to seek uh, we have to seek another search warrant because the search warrant that we had was for electronic devices. It said nothing about drugs. But the thing is, if we discover something that's illegal or potentially illegal during a legal search, then we can seize that. And so that's another little bit of law enforcement knowledge, is that if they find something that's illegal during a legal search, they can also seize that too. They just have to get authorization. So what we do is we get a telephone authorization. We call up the same person and we say, hey, during the search, we found this bag with white powder in it, and it looks like it could be potential drugs. So then they give us a verbal authorization saying, yes, go ahead and collect it. What that means is we can collect it, take it in, process it for evidence and everything. But after, immediately after that, we have to go get a written authorization from that same person. So that's how the military does it. Do you have any kind of different experience in getting verbal authorization for search warrants?
No, each state's going to be different. One of the things I was going to ask was, with this being a military and a civilian investigation, does this guy look at charges from either local law enforcement, state law, or military law, or both? What are you looking at as far as that goes?
So when it comes to charging, the military justice system, the military, the JAGs, the military uh, judge advocates, that's it. The judge advocates will contact local law enforcement to find out who is their prosecutor, like who is the prosecutor that would take up this case. Once they find that out, or we will find that out, and then we'll we'll tell the JAGs. So JAGs will call the prosecutor, the local prosecutor, and say, "Hey, we think we have a, we can get more severe punishment through our system. So if you are okay with it, we would like to request jurisdiction over this case."
Now, do most of these charges kind of sound the same as far as the title of the charge, whether it's military or law enforcement?
Most of them do. Most of them, you can probably read it and it'll read across the same thing. There's certain things where like the definitions are a little bit different, but it's all like you can look it up and see what the difference is and
Okay.
how, well, this means this in military language, but it means this in state language.
Okay. All right. So then they've got um, to work out whether it's going to be a military charge or a law enforcement charge.
Right.
And then as far as the search warrant goes, you're very specific when you do that search warrant. And like you said, if you're searching for electronics, um, that could contain those kinds of items you're looking for. And I think the rub comes in, and like I said, depending on what state it is, if you are looking in a duffel bag for more iPhones, say this, or hard drives, and you discover what appears to be a powder, and you test it, and it field tests positive for, say, cocaine, you don't have to get a secondary search warrant to cover that bag because the bag itself was within the scope of the search for any kind of electronics or hard drives or anything like that. So you could go like that. Where you run into problems are if you just state that, let's say you're looking for drugs and somehow where you're looking isn't where drugs would be located, and you keep looking and find something, then you might be treading water into an area that you need a second search warrant or a verbal search warrant to cover that. And I don't remember, now this is probably because electronics and technology is advanced, but I think there's probably a way from right at the scene to even get a written search warrant now. Is bang it out on some iPad or something, and next thing you know, here you go.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
you have to follow the guidelines of reasonable search and seizure. And, is it reasonable to think that looking in that bag, you might find a cell phone? Yeah, it is.
Right.
But look there's, half a key of cocaine. So yeah, you keep popping for that as well. You wouldn't open up a sealed condom to look for a cell phone.
Right.
So if you were looking for drugs hidden inside of a sealed, something the size of a Band-Aid or a condom where drugs might be kept, but you won't find a cell phone in there. So that would be crossing that line. So it had to make sense. It had to be reasonable.
Yep.
And a reasonable person could expect some measure of privacy on that. So you got this guy and you've posed as a victim, and then you've introduced a minor to him and he seems to be okay with it. So I have a feeling I know where this is going to go next. So move on.
Yeah.
You know what's up.
So when you think about it, I'm going to use this as an example. So when we did our search warrant, we said electronic devices. Okay. It could be something as small as this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the size of a potential like flash drive or something. So it could be something this size, for comparison, that could be taken during that search warrant. So we're looking anywhere that somebody could hide that. And so when we looked in this particular place for stuff, we found a CD, and then we also found that bag of white powder. So once we got the verbal authorization, we seized it, and we kept going. We got done. We finished our search warrant. We left the living quarters, went back to the office, and started processing evidence. And so, unlike the shows and TV and movies and stuff, we didn't process the electronic stuff right then and there. We didn't have some magic machine that just scanned everything and told us what was on it. We have to package it up and send it off to our lab. So our lab is located, I believe, in Colorado. I think that was the one that was assigned to us. So, and there's only like two. There's like one in Colorado and one in like New Jersey or something. So we send it off. They are the ones that hook it up, make sure that everything is copied from it, and then they send us basically a huge hard drive with everything compiled into it. So they send us a big old hard drive that we can look at and review and make copies and um, just make extra folders so we can drag it into that folder and say, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is suspected something, blah blah blah. So same thing with the white powder. We could have field tested it right there, but because of the dangers of fentanyl,
Mhm.
we sent it off to the lab. So we sealed it. It was already in a bag, so it's not like kind of like what you were saying earlier. We don't have to like dump it out of the bag and collect it into a individual thing. We just say we took the white powder in the container
Yeah.
that it was in, which is fine. They People understand that. There's no like maybe like a lawyer who might be losing might try and say like, well, you didn't say you were claiming the bag, something maybe, but he wouldn't get very far because they're going to be like, well, duh, they're going to take the bag too.
Yeah.
So they we sent it off to the lab. They examined it, and the powder comes back as a synthetic cocaine. And so what he was doing was he was ordering this synthetic cocaine from a foreign country, and they were shipping it to him in the mail. So now we have another aspect to this. Now we have the U.S. Postal Service involved. And for those who don't know, the U.S. Postal Service has investigators. They are federal agents, and they were actually the first federal law enforcement. Fun fact.
Hmm.
So, U.S. Postal Service investigators or inspectors, they're called inspectors. They basically control everything that goes through the mail. They also do a lot of internet uh, crimes as well, because usually people will order something off the internet that's illegal or whatever, and it'll get shipped to them through the mail. So now they have authority to search that whole realm. So we got the U.S. Postal Service inspector. I'm just going to call him inspector from now on. We got the inspector involved, and he was able to get us authorization to go into Bob's mailbox or his PO box on base. And so we were able to go in there and we find more powder that had been delivered to him.
Hmm.
So we send that off to the lab again just to get it tested again. And it came back the same thing, the synthetic cocaine. So then we get the computers back. We get the hard drive back with all the information on it. We start digging through it, and sure enough, we find some child pornography on there, and it was you know it wasn't just one or two. It was a good amount, and um, for military, for cases that I've worked when it involves child pornography, they have to have at least 10 items, which could be a picture, a video, whatever, a drawing, something. They have to have 10 items. And so this person had way more than 10 items. So we were good on that end. We start sending all the information to the JAGs. We're like, hey, this is what we found. This is what we got. Stuff like that. So I think, all right, this guy, he's probably gonna get a good amount of time. No big deal. We're We're going to wrap this case up, put a pretty bow on it, and send it off. About a month later, after that whole incident happened, I'm getting ready for what's called the air show, which is at military bases. They do a big show where they have a bunch of planes, and it's a big festival. It's open to the public. People can go on base, see the planes, and they do like a bunch of tricks and stuff. It's a good time. Like, and there's model airplanes that everybody can like go and look at, and they can sit in the cockpit of a jet and stuff like that. It's fun. So I'm getting ready for the air show. It was the night before the air show, and I knew I was going to be working all day in the sun. So I was like, I'm going to try and get a good night's sleep. I get a call on my work phone, and it's from the BDOC, which is the Base Defense Operations Center. And that's the local, or no, excuse me, not the local, the military police. That's their like central hub. And so they call me and they say, hey, we have someone that attempted, or no, that ran somebody over and fled the scene, and we got him stopped at the gate. And I think it's a guy that you've been working with. Is it Bob? I'm like, yeah. All right. I'm on my way. So I get dressed. I mean, like, I had just gotten into bed. I had just laid down. I was ready to go to sleep, and I got that call. So I get dressed and go. I go to the front gate. I see that they have Bob. I'm like, hey, Bob, what are you doing? And so we get him to the holding center for the military police. We get him to the holding center there. And we're like trying to understand what's going on, because there was like, at first it was he ran somebody over, then he kidnapped somebody, then he tried to flee the base. There was like all these different things going on. And so when things like that happen, this is what can happen. Information can be skewed. There could be all kinds of crazy things coming out. There could be, shots fired when really there was nothing. Like, there's some people that get like really amped up when something's happening in front of them, and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I think this happened. And then it turned out like the car backfired or something. Like, so then they're like, oh God, he started shooting at me. So there was a lot of information going on. So we got all of the victims, all the people that were involved at this, at the police holding center. So we find out that there was a party. There's a party there at this house on base. People were having a good time. And then Bob shows up to the party, and he's talking to some people. He's having a good time. Now, mind you, he is underage. He's not over 21. So, well, he wasn't then. And so he's partaking, he's drinking, having a good time with everyone. And usually for like misdemeanor, small level stuff, that's base police. Like, if somebody's drinking underage or drinking and driving, like, that's base police. They handle that. They're not going to call us for that. So he's there, and he's talking to, I got to come up with all these different names. So he's there with Carl. We'll say Carl. Carl was there drinking and talking to him, and Bob's like, hey, don't I know you? And Carl's like, no, I don't think so. We never really met before. And Bob's like, no, I think I know you. Yeah, I think I know you because we just had sex last night. And Carl's like, at this point, Carl thinks that he's playing a joke. Like, he really doesn't know this guy. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that was us. That was totally us. He's like going along with it, just being dumb. Or he's pretending to just joke around with them because he thinks it's a joke. So then throughout the whole night, Bob's just like, yeah, I mean, we had a good time. And Carl's like, yep, we sure did. And he's just going along with it. After a little while, then Bob starts to get mad. He's like, hey, why are you acting like you don't know what happened? why are you acting like we didn't just, have sex last night? And Carl's like, all right, man, I thought you were joking. And so I was going along with it, but now you're starting to like weird me out. Like, no, I don't know you. We've never met before tonight. And then Bob starts getting angry. And he's like, yes, we did. Carl's like, whoa, dude. All right. Joke's over. I don't know you. I don't know what's going on. Please stop saying these things to me. So then Bob gets infuriated and he's like, you know what? That's it. Each, and this was the words of Carl. He tried to jump over the kitchen island. He tried to jump over, but he was a little larger and couldn't make it. So he like fell back down. and
Now, Bob is your original suspect.
Right. So Bob's the original suspect of this whole
And
thing.
his case, you all sent off to the JAG, and he's not been under arrest or anything. He's been allowed to freely just continue on with his life
Yes.
until what? He gets summoned to court?
Yes. So
Okay. They
that's
didn't give you probable cause to go ahead and snag him right then?
depending on how severe it is. Some commanders, some leaders will say, this guy seems like he's going to be trouble. I'm going to confine him to the base. He's not allowed to leave. And if he does, then obviously he has to come back. And when he comes back, then he's going to get in trouble even more. So then we're going to confine him even more. Now, there are certain things where we can pursue pretrial confinement. And so we can put him in jail. What that does, though, is it starts the speedy trial clock. And so everybody has a right to a speedy trial, in due time, like in a reasonable time. So we don't typically do that unless the crime is very severe.
Okay.
And in this case, leadership on both the JAG and my agency side both said, we're not going to pursue that. We don't think he's necessarily a danger to society.
Said the guy that he got run over by him.
Right. so yeah. So then they said, yeah, we're not going to pursue that. So we didn't. We figured we'll leave it to the commander. The commander will keep an eye on him, and that'll be it. And I don't remember. I think he was confined to the base. He wasn't allowed to leave base, but I don't remember. So anyways, yeah, we get back to the story. So Carl realizes like Bob's trying to fight him. He just tried to jump over the kitchen island, try to fight me. So then Bob, we found out later that Bob had been using this synthetic cocaine because he got more. But we found out that he had been using it, and when we were talking to Carl was like, I don't know what was wrong with him. Like, obviously he was saying really crazy stuff, but then after he tried to jump over the kitchen island, he fell back down. He goes, hey, just wait until I tie my shoes. And so he ties his shoes, and then then he comes around. So he comes around the island, and that's when punches were thrown and stuff like that. I don't remember the exact details of the fight, but I know it didn't last very long. Everybody was aware of the situation at that point because Bob was yelling about his shoes, and then all the attention was there. So it got broken up. So then Bob goes outside, and he has a friend with him, Andrew. I don't know. He has a friend with him, and so the friend is like, "Hey, man, let's just go. Let's get out of here. Like, obviously, this is not going well. Let's just get out of here." And this friend is, he's not gay, he's straight. He's not like his boyfriend or anything like that. So there's no issue there. But Andrew's just, being a good guy. He's like trying to look out for his friend. Like, come on, let's get out of here. So Andrew and Bob get in the car. He speeds off. And then, according to Andrew, Bob says, you know what? No, this isn't okay. Pulls back around to the house. Like, he does like a loop in the neighborhood, pulls back around. At this point, everybody was outside. And when Bob gets out of the car, he's like, yelling at Carl. Everybody's like there outside, and he's yelling at Carl. And Carl's like, "Hey, look, man. Like, I know you're mad, but don't get in the car. You're drunk. Like, don't get in the car. Don't drive." Everybody's like saying the same thing to him. Don't drive. Don't get in the car. And Bob like tries one more time. He's like, "I'm going to give you one last chance to admit that we were together last night." And Carl's like, "No, dude. I've never met you until tonight, and I don't like. I really want you to stop saying that stuff and stop doing this right now." And so Bob looks at him and says, "You know what? I'm going to kill you." So Bob gets into the car. He revs up his car. He's about like 20, 30 feet away. He parked like a couple houses down and walked up. I don't know why, but he gets goes back, gets in his car. He drives up and he goes to run up onto the driveway and hit Carl with his car. The problem is he hit the curb and the curb redirected him. So now you got Carl standing there, but off to the side of Carl is, make up a name for me.
A bunch of other people.
Yeah. So Alex. So Alex is off to the side of Carl, and when Bob's car redirected, it hit Alex. So like he went from driving straight towards Carl to getting redirected by the curb, and then he hit Alex with his car, and Alex hit the hood, the windshield flew off, uh, and then Bob drove away. So at this point, people are calling 911. They're like, "Hey, there's this guy in this car. He just hit somebody. He just like ran him over. He said he was going to kill somebody and ran somebody over, and now he's running out the base, or he's driving away, and he's got somebody with him." That's where the whole kidnapping thing came in. So he drives towards the gate, and that's when base police stop him, and they arrested him there and brought him into the holding center. So at this point, now we have a whole nother slew of charges that are coming his way.
Mhm.
And once we got the story, I gave you the story as it happened, but it took us a lot of interviewing and a lot of uh, time to put all that story together. Like we had to interview neighbors, we had to interview all the people that were at the party. So it was a lot, but we finally got it all done. At that time, once we went to talk to Bob, we went to talk to Bob. At that point, he already had a lawyer, so he was like, "Hey, I already have a lawyer. You're not going to talk to me." So we're like, "All right, fine, no big deal." So we bypassed the subject interview because he requested a lawyer. So we left. We went and we seized his car because now it's a weapon. So we seized his car, put it into a warehouse where we store stuff, and we went back, interviewed all the victims. Everybody talked to us. We talked to Carl. We talked to Alex, the guy that got ran over. We had to take photographs of Alex's injuries and just bunch of a bunch of investigative work. So then we get search authorization for the car. We had to get it to seize the car, but then we had to get another one to search the car. So this time we use the evidence that we had already collected as information for the affidavit to try and collect more of this evidence. So we were looking for drugs, we were looking for more electronics, we were looking for pretty much anything that could have been involved. We search his room, we search his car, we find more drugs, we find more electronic devices that had internet capability. So I think his order was that he wasn't allowed to go on the internet or have devices that could go on the internet, but he did. He still had them. So, um, yeah, we collected all that stuff, and we once we had possession of the car, we had to do some processing to make sure that we could match that car was indeed there and used to run over Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, if he got run over by that, wouldn't be hard to prove because the amount of physical evidence left behind from fingerprints possibly on the hood and
Yep.
any kind of if his head got hit, any hair he might have had if he wasn't, bald. DNA could be transferred that way. I mean, there's a lot of ways to prove that car was the car.
Yep.
So
we dusted it for prints. We lifted the prints off of the headlight and the hood. We took DNA swabs of the car and so when we interviewed Alex, we had to collect the DNA from him so we could use it. So, well, not us, but the lab. So the lab could use it to match it to what was collected off the car. And if it
right.
matched, then it was a done deal. Like that's proof right there. So a lot of stuff happened. When it came down to the trial, the original victim, I don't even remember what I called him. The kid, Johnny. Yeah, Johnny. Johnny was pretty upset by the whole situation. Like he was just upset with everything that happened. He didn't want anything to do with it. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. So he ended up not participating. He didn't testify. And so I don't even think that was necessarily used. But when it came down to it, he got charged with everything for the drugs. And it'd be good to get your perspective on this too. So the drugs, because they were a synthetic drug and they weren't scheduled, it wasn't on like a DEA schedule. They weren't considered drugs. They were considered mind-altering substances, which in the military we have charges for drugs. We have Article 112A and we have a couple others, but for synthetic drugs, we don't have anything because it's not a scheduled drug. And so it falls under an article called Article 92, which is failure to obey an order. And the order that he was not obeying was the fact that he was using a mind altering substance because that is listed somewhere else in some other bylaw and yada yada. So everything got charged. He pled guilty to most of it. There's a couple things that he didn't. But and I don't remember the exact outcome, but and with the guilty plea, he was given a little bit of grace, and especially because it was his first offense, well, first collection of offenses. He only got 8 years, and he had to serve them in a military penitentiary.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of times when there's involvement of a non-specific nature, there's usually a clause somewhere in the general orders or even state law that cover the back door, so to speak, of that particular type situation. Synthetic drugs was a new thing. I don't know. I guess it's been about 5 years now when they first hit the market with spice and all these other things. And they quickly put them on the books as a schedule when they know about them. But up until that point, there are laws that will cover those kinds of things, especially when it involves either law enforcement or military or something to do with conduct unbecoming or your mind-altering substances charge and so forth. There's a lot about being fit for duty and compromising your fitness for duty. And there's a lot of things that can be done. And sometimes they carry more penalties than the regular charge would. When Al Capone was put in jail, it wasn't for all the crazy that associated with the mob thing. It was for tax evasion.
Right.
And he spent, many years in jail just for tax evasion. Kind of doesn't matter how you get them, just as long as you get them, and
right.
Sometimes these variances in the laws are the bad guy's worst enemy because they can't think of everything,
Right.
and, but that's good to hear. I mean, that's a crazy story. It, this person is definitely on the wrong path at the time. And you wonder, or I wondered, man, with all this stuff going on, how do you have find time to be a soldier boy? I mean, when did he ever find time to do his real job? So I guess that's the age old question. But certainly very intriguing, very involved. I'm sure countless hours. And you probably felt a lot like that first victim. Like, I ain't testifying. I'm done with this thing. I don't want to hear nothing else about it. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I did have to go testify for that case.
yeah.
And, but at that point I was like, I was ready for it. I was ready to do it because, there was a lot of stuff that I did for that case, and we really needed to make sure that we sealed the deal on our end. So, um, yeah, I was definitely done working it. I mean, I was definitely done losing sleep over it and working countless hours trying to get everything done because, I tell you that whole story and all that stuff that happened, but there's so many hours of
Mm.
paperwork and interviewing and, and writing up everything and just all kinds of stuff that we have to do. Not to mention reviewing that hard drive. That took like a week just to get through all that stuff on that hard drive. Like, so there's
Yeah.
just so much stuff that goes involved. And then you got to work all your other cases. And at that time we had a ton of cases going on. So it was a lot of work. So I was ready to be done with that case and yeah, get him where he needed to be.
Now, did any victims come forward after the fact once it was known that this guy was who he was? Did
No,
you?
we weren't able to uncover any other victims. None, none other than the guy that got ran over and the original victim. But
What about from the electronic equipment? Was it just downloads he did, or was any of it a victim where he recorded any of it or took pictures?
no, it was all downloads. Nothing self produced or anything like that. It was just him,
All right.
downloading it. So
And you were practicing something to hold your own sanity together during all this? I mean, there had to be countless hours that it was hard to leave it at the door when you came home.
yeah, I at that time I was, man, I don't even know. I think I just toughed it out and did my best. And um, there were some times where I, it almost helped me to go to sleep if I took like a quick like glass of whiskey, and it was just to help me go to sleep. It wasn't even really like, it wasn't because like I felt like I needed it. It just I I guess kind of I felt like I needed it because I used it to help me relax enough to go to sleep. I couldn't really, you know, do other things to relax. Like I can't take a medication or some people will smoke marijuana to relax and stuff like that. Like I can't do that stuff, so I have to go. At that time, I figured going to alcohol was the best thing, and it was just to get me to calm down and then be able to go to sleep because my mind was constantly racing with all the things I had to do and all the stuff that needed to happen. Eventually, I broke that habit. I didn't feel like I needed it to sleep anymore, even when things were chaotic.
Yeah.
I really had to I really had to bolster my faith. I had to bolster my faith in God, and um, there was a church that we went to that it was okay, and there were times where uh, God spoke to me when I needed it. So um, that was really what I did.
Yeah. Um, you have to guard your heart, and you can't look at stuff like that over the course of any amount of time without it affecting, unless you can like shield your heart somehow and wrap it in steel or something.
Right.
You have to be able to do that so that you can maintain a clear head and clear direction on where you need to go. Your grandmother will ask you this one day, but she'll want to know the same thing. How do you look at all the ugly and all the bad in the world and still be able to come home and play with the kids and stuff? And the truth of it is, when you do get home, and the biggest problem you have at home is whether or not there's chocolate chip cookies or Doritos for supper. And the kids don't care either way. They're just happy,
Yep.
and that's how you deal with it, is you dive right into the good things. And that's one of the ways, at least. And that can melt away a lot of anguish when you look into their eyes, and they have serious problems. These are not nacho Doritos, these are ranch. I don't like ranch, go get nacho. It's like, these are the real problems of the world, and
Right.
you're going to do it. And tell her to quit putting my toothbrush in the toilet, those kinds of things. So really cool case, really good insight. And I know you only briefly touched on the mountain of work that it took to get you to that point, but I think the interesting part is the military works with the law enforcement side to see which is the best outcome for the case.
Right.
I'm sure the crazy side of it is when you have to side with one side and you want them to move faster, or you want things to happen faster. If it were me, I'd be wanting that guy in jail the minute I saw child pornography on his thing. He needed to be in jail, just to make sure there were going to be no more victims. And if these were, at the time, at least it was just downloads, not that lessens it any, but he's not actually victimizing people himself. So if he's been victimizing people himself, man, I'd say lock him away, and put it to him.
Right.
But
everybody gets a process. Everybody gets, a fair and equal process. So,
and there's some things that are just not able to be moved along fast enough. The resources aren't there, and people don't understand that. It just, you hate the overused word of victimless crimes, but when a person is only downloading the material and not victimizing a person, it takes a back seat to somebody that was doing that. So in my mind's eyes, it's the same as if he was victimizing people. He's doing it in his mind. He needs to be locked away so he doesn't put that into action, So good case, good involvement, nice angle with the law enforcement and military side. I myself have not had a case where I've worked with military, but bizarrely enough, sometimes working with the federal government can seem like you're working with the military. So at some point we'll talk about some of those cases.
Yeah.
Usually they just want to be there for all the flash and excitement and shock and awe, and then they're gone and you're left with all the work. So we'll talk about that on another time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts you want to add?
No. Yeah. Well, I also divulged in food a lot. Like, I gained some weight when I was working there. I didn't have any time to work out, but I had plenty of time to eat. So I divulged in food, and I just had my son, and he was a brand new baby. So it was good to come home and just see the innocence through him. It was good. And sometimes, so going to the local, working with military or federal or whatever, it's really, we really just look for all the benefits of the relationship. So Um, in my case, the local police had the ability to do undercover op a lot quicker than we could have because we would have had to get some approvals and stuff. So they were able to do that, and then we were able to use our resources for things that locals it would have took them a lot longer, or they would have to reach out to somebody else to get some resources to do that. So the good thing about military and federal is that our budgets are pretty big, and so
Yeah.
we have some resources that we can use,
Yeah.
and so we were able to assist locals in that way, and so we just find the best benefits out of everything, and sometimes the federal side, not talking about military, but the federal side can move so much quicker than anybody. It just depends. Like it all just depends on what the case is, what the evidence is, all that.
Right.
So, but yeah, it was a good case. Um, I learned a lot from it, and with any subject, so Bob, uh, you always some people may not think this way, but I do, and in which I hope that this time away from society kind of helps make them better as a person, or realize what they were doing wasn't okay, um, and they can get back into society and be a different person. It's not that they didn't hurt people, but people can get a second chance. People can learn to forgive and change and things like that. So I do hope that Bob comes out of this a different person.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in people changing. I mean, there's some that will. I think the majority don't. And I didn't mean to minimalize the victimization of the very first incident that got this thing started in the first place, in the
Mm.
bathroom with the guy. It's like, I think, man, I don't know. I guess it depends on availability of resources and so forth, but I really think that um, you have to minimize the chances of making another victim. I mean, this kid, I don't know how he survived it. I don't know what he's doing, how he dealt with it. Um, I would tend to want to look closer at him too and make sure there's no backstory on that he wasn't giving off signals that this guy got confused and when they went to the bathroom, it's on or whatever. I'm sure you guys looked at it pretty hard. But if he's truly an innocent victim, he'd probably never volunteer again for another kind of deal like that. At least he'd be on high alert. But the reality of the innocence lost on a person, um, it's pretty substantial. I wanted to ask you if in your unit, were you stuck working just those kinds of cases, or did you have the opportunity to work other kinds of cases? How were cases assigned to you guys?
So with my agency, we have field agents, and there's so many field agents that are assigned to a unit, and the field agents work anything ranging from fraud to sex crimes to child crimes to um, suicides, and so we have a wide range of crimes that we can, and drugs and stuff like that. We have a wide range of things that we investigate, and so I didn't necessarily have to work the child crimes or the sex crimes. I ended up working a lot of them, and my unit was so small that we all basically just pitched in on everybody's cases. Like anything we could do to help each other out, we were trying to do that because
Yeah.
we had a ton of cases, not a lot of agents. I don't know what happened. We just that particular base just went haywire in one year, and just all kinds of things came out. So um, we were very overworked and understaffed, and it's hard to say, hey, I know we have the right amount of agents per the base populace, but we need more. Like there's way too much crime going on here. We need more. And it's hard to like make that argument because then the higher ups are going to be like, well, when it settles down, then you're going to have an extra person, and then we have to deal with that. So there's a lot of logistics, a lot of problems, but in that, in lieu of getting another person, we just helped each other out as much as we could. Even the people
Yeah.
that weren't, even leadership was running cases. Like it was pretty crazy. Usually that stuff doesn't happen, but yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. Fortunately, during my tenure, I could pick, what kind of cases I wanted to work by being assigned to that unit. I couldn't just sit and pick, but if I wanted to work, drugs, you went to that unit. If you want to work auto theft, chop shops, you went to that unit. It was a different unit for each type of crime.
Yeah.
And it takes skilled people to handle sex crimes and child crimes, things like that. I wasn't very good mentally in a place that I could do that. I was, I love the cars, I love trucks, I love chop shops, drugs, vice, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And maybe I was just too chicken to try it. I just really didn't like people in that arena. I could deal with a whole lot more. I could deal with robbery. I could deal with other bad guys a lot better than I could deal with suspects of those child crimes, man. And it could be because kids of your own. It takes a rare person, and this country is blessed to have those people in those jobs because we need somebody to put these bad guys away. But I was fortunate that, I guess if I got in trouble, I might get assigned to some place. It's like, you're going to work, parking tickets, or something like that.
Yeah.
But fortunately, that never happened. But
Gotcha.
all right, anything else?
No, that's
All
all
right.
I got for today.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the download, and we hope that if you have any questions, please stick them in there and let us know what you think. It's complex, and especially the more agencies you get involved, the more complex it can get. And when you see a case like right now in Georgia, it's a Ahmaud Arbery case, and everybody's involved in that thing. It takes time to see that stuff through because of so many different people involved. If you want it done right, you got to be patient. And unfortunately, law enforcement has lost a little bit of trust over the years in the way they've handled things. This isn't law enforcement related, but certainly anytime somebody's involved where the trust issue might be missing, it's going to generate some emotion. So just everyone be patient, let the system play out, and let the evidence lead you where it wants to go. One of our major themes throughout all these podcasts is follow the evidence. The evidence will take you where you need to go. Right. And got 12 in the box, ready to make a decision before long. This case may drag out in a while, but I think they'll be good. I think they'll make the right decision. And they're feeding a little bit of information to the public. I think kind of trying to keep them informed as to what's going on inside the courtroom, which I think is good. Just want everybody to be reasonable and keep clear heads about it. And let's see where it goes. So
for sure.
All right, man. Until the next time. Well, there you go. Another great case in the books. Be sure to tune in next week when we unpack a new one, and I hope you have a good week.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you haven't already, go subscribe to our show. And if you liked it, maybe go get a buddy or two to go subscribe to it as well. Give us a like, a comment, a rating, whatever it is that you're watching this on, and make sure to give us some feedback because we want to make sure that we're doing the absolute best we can for our audience. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Criminal Motives Behind the Crime Scene Tape.